for you today. I'm not going to introduce myself first of all because there's a biography somewhere that you can find and it's awesome and I'm sure it's better than what I would do right now. So I'm going to read to you a part of Destiny's War and then the Kevlar Canoe from Mask Mosaic, which is a short story. That is a lot of fun. I've read before, but I absolutely adore reading it. And it's, if you love it and you nominate for the Auroras, it is applicable this year. And if not, who cares? You'll have fun reading it, trust me. So the first scene is from Destiny's War. It doesn't have any spoilers, I don't think. Yeah, it doesn't have any spoilers. If you read the other two books, it just gives you an idea of who doesn't die.
Wait, there are people who don't die?
Or they come back. We're Marvel Universe all the way. So I'm going to start with that. So this is from Destiny's War, and it is like a part of the way in, but you know, it's fun. You guys can all follow. I'm not even going to introduce it because I have so much trust in you guys being able to follow this simple scene. Which how should go on with it? Okay. The desiccant rattled now. The desiccant being a ship, I'll give you that. Her entire hull rattled. Not a particular section of the ship or the engine. The whole ship rattled endlessly as they traveled the overpriced tunnel. Avian had tried to ignore it at first, but it was getting pretty hard, especially when clanking added itself to the rhythm. She disliked the clanking more, though the rattling would give even more the most sturdy of heads a migraine. Giroux, the engineer, looked over chart after chart of schematics, but he was a systems analyst, not an engineer. That's what happens when you try to add stuff in when you're reading. Not an engineer. Gobrand hummed along with the rattling and couldn't see the nasty looks she shot his way. His humming proved more annoying than the clanking, she decided, definitely. The lift door opened, which she saw but certainly didn't hear over the symphony of the desiccant. Patro stepped on the bridge, taking in Avian's annoyance, Jarvis' confusion, and Gobrand singing before exclaiming, "Is anyone else concerned about the fact that we sound like we're about to fall apart?" Avian felt a bit better at seeing his wide eyes. "So you do have some survival instincts then, eh?" she said, then had to repeat it louder so she could be heard. He practically hopped closer to her, his face flushed blue. "This isn't a game, Avian. We sound like we're about to be ripped apart." She turned to Gobrand. "Are we there yet, old man?" His fingers ran on a static screen. She didn't know how it worked, but it certainly seemed to, as it seemed to work even though he could not see the screen being blind, which was all she cared about. "Next exit," he exclaimed. "Ah, thanks for the heads up." Avian turned to Patros, who was still looking at her with wide eyes. She didn't care to enlighten him at this particular point in time. It was nice to see him worried about his own life. "Are you going to take the helm and take us out, Patros? Or do you want to risk me having to do it?" She leaned forward. "I'm feeling cheeky." Patros rolled his eyes, but took the helm. The ship jerked and almost sent her flying out of her chair. The rest of her crew, much more sensible than Avian, were all strapped in. Patros turned, still glaring. "Sorry, Captain." "No worries," Avian said, forcing her grip to loosen on her armrests. "I like a bit of jostling." Patros turned back to his station, but not quickly enough to hide the smile forming on his lips. Avian leaned back as she lowered the tachyonic shields. The clanking stopped, and the rattling lessened. "Okay, so the tachyon shields are the clankers, and we suppose the speed is the rattler? Wait, that makes no sense. What would we rattle on? We're in space. Best aerodynamic travel around." Giroux piped up. "I think the rattling is the engines, or the hull, maybe. Maybe a seam is starting to form?" "Out of curiosity, is there any way of detecting that or fixing that before the ship rips apart?" Gobrand chuckled from where he ran his hands on his screen. "There should be," Giroux said, his fingers flying on his station. Avian noticed two interfaces she hadn't seen before. It seemed that Giroux had been adding some deals of his own on the side. Good for him. And not all of it was linked to computers like he usually did. Nice brewing machine and mug holder. Giroux shot a grin her way. He had been the youngest crew member on the Destiny, aside from her and her brother, of course, and he still looked the same as he did years ago. He was in his 50s, maybe even closing in on his 60s, but he didn't look a day over 40. All that caffeine must be pickling his insides. We're nearing the Briganda's home, Petros said, the anger completely gone from his voice. He was quick to forgive and, Avienne thought, maybe even quicker to forget. It was an important part of why he had stayed, she was certain. Should we bring the ship into the atmosphere or just shuttle down? Avienne looked to Jaru. Well, can we tell if we're going to make it into the atmosphere, or are we just going to rattle our little brains out? Brains and skin, Gobran offered from where he sat. She shot a grin his way. I'm grinning at you, silly old coot, she added for good measure. I'm seeing it, he said, chuckling. I'm surrounded by insanity, Petros said, shaking his head as he brought them near the planet of Bernice. Its moon so huge it was half the size of the planet. The two bodies played with each other's gravitational field so badly that entire sections of the planet were on flood alerts at all times, and high tide rose so quickly that it engulfed the Careless within minutes. It was practically a state of emergency for the planet. And on a world that only housed distilleries, there were many careless vacationers. And I will stop the scene here.
They were once known as angels from the sky of heaven.